Mustafa Barghouti now, Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. Welcome to you, Mustafa. If we were rating the way things have gone so far with the exchanges, 5 of them now, of captives on both sides, would you say it's gone as well as could have been hoped for?
Yes and no. Yes, because what was promised happened, but no, because there is total uncertainty about how things will go. But let me, before responding to that, explain something. I'm really shocked about the Israeli and many Western media reaction to the release of the prisoners. Since the beginning of the exchanges of prisoners, which is going on for almost a year, every Israeli prisoner came out of jail in good health, in good shape, in good situation, looking good. And each one of them explained that they were very well taken care of. None of them was beaten, none of them was attacked, none of them was starved. Now, the last 3, of course, suffered from what the people who were keeping them suffered from, which is the starvation that was imposed on Gaza by the Israeli government, by the Israeli army. And these people probably have been kept in the north, where the people were really subjected to terrible starving. Now, when you look at all Palestinian prisoners who came from jail, out of jail, like Khalid Jarrar, the member of parliament, Palestinian parliament, or the other prisoners who were released today, most of them have lost 20 to 35 or 40 kilograms of their body weight. Many of them came out very sick. 7 of those who came out today were sent to hospitals. And all of them were subjected to beating, to solitary confinement, to being attacked by dogs. And now, even when they were released, the Israeli soldiers continued to beat them and humiliate them. Compare the 2 pictures together. Now we hear Netanyahu is upset because the last 3 prisoners came looking not very healthy, which is true. But he doesn't care. Nobody is caring about all the thousands of Palestinian prisoners who are intentionally beaten, tortured. 60 of them died in Israeli jails because of torture. And Netanyahu ignores the fact that all these prisoners could have come out in a much better situation had he agreed to the deal in April. But no, he insisted to continue. Killed 10,000 more Palestinians, including at least 3,000 children. And of course, killed some of the Israeli prisoners, or captives, as they call them. And who is responsible for that? Nobody is blaming Netanyahu for that when you watch Western media. So this level of bias, this level of double standard is something we simply cannot tolerate anymore. It's too much, and honestly speaking, disgusting when you look at some media outlets.
If we look ahead, because it's almost upon us, we're well into the 6-week stage of phase 1. Phase 2, negotiations are just starting, but there's really not a lot of time left on the clock to come to some kind of agreement. And general consensus seems to be it's going to be very difficult to come to an agreement for phase 2 because it requires determining a permanent end to the war. Do you think we're going to see that?
I think Netanyahu is procrastinating, and more than that, there is every risk that he will reactivate the war. And he was encouraged by the comments of President Trump, who seems to be insisting to be described as a participant in calling for a war crime. When President Trump talks about ethnic cleansing of all the people of Gaza and talks about the theft of the land of Gaza from its owners, the people of the Palestinian people, then, of course, Netanyahu concludes that he can do whatever he wants. So to achieve the ethnic cleansing he was dreaming about from the beginning of this war and failed to achieve, regardless of the bombardment of Gaza with 86,000 tons of explosives. I think we need every effort, every possible pressure on Netanyahu to come to negotiations, and about not only this stage, but about the next stage, because the next stage will determine whether the war will continue or will stop. And what we need is the end of this war. Enough is enough. The suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza is beyond description. We're talking about the death of at least 70,000 people, including those who died from diseases and sicknesses. but mostly 55,000 were killed by Israeli bombardment, and the injury of more than 106,000. We're talking about 10% of the population of Gaza who were killed or injured. That is such a huge number. If you apply it to the United States proportionally, you would be talking about 32 million people killed or injured in 15 months. How would have the United States reacted to that? I think we need every possible pressure so that we can have not only implementation of the first phase and the release of the remaining prisoners, but also to extend the deal to the next stage and end the war. There is no
Mustafa, who is
chance
going to
that
apply that pressure? You've got, if Israel does decide that it doesn't want to continue with the status quo, with the ceasefire, and with, I would say, Netanyahu emboldened by the rhetoric of Donald Trump, who is trying to get Gazans out of Gaza, who will bring pressure to bear on the United States and Israel?
United States will not exercise pressure on Netanyahu because they are in alliance with him, that's for sure. But I'm talking about the families of Israeli prisoners who, if they want to see their prisoners released in good health or in alive, they have to exercise pressure on Netanyahu. All other Western governments, all other governments of the world must exercise this pressure and must take a very powerful stand, as they are doing today, against the notion of ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, which is nothing but a war crime. I think the reaction of the world to what Trump proposed was very powerful, very severe. He understands what that means. And I think this pressure should also be translated into demanding the end of this war and the end of this atrocity and finding a way for real just peace. And just peace cannot happen unless Israel is forced to end its occupation of Palestinian territories.
Mustafa, greatly appreciate your time. My guest, Mustafa Barghouti from the Palestinian National Initiative.